Someone should tell parties like Sinn Féin that they can have climate action or a lower cost of living, but not both. This is Ben Scallon and you're watching Gripped Media. If The Art of War had been written by the Irish opposition instead of Sun Tzu, it would have been much shorter and gone something like this. Shout at your opponent when the goals that you told them to adopt backfire. That's it, mind you, that's the whole book. This alone is the plank which underlies almost all of Irish discourse. No matter what the issue is or the situation, Irish parties follow the same worn-out protocol. Demand that their opponents pursue certain goals and then give out to them when their hated foe actually agrees and does what they were asked to do. If our country's politics was a dance battle, the contestants would have precisely two moves. Not popping and locking, but flipping and flopping. Less crip walking and more crap talking. And we've been reminded of this fact yet again by the country's biggest opposition party, Sinn Féin, on the cost of living crisis. Sinn Féin's finance spokesman, Piers Doherty TD, did not hold back recently as he ripped the government a new one over the ongoing cost of living crisis. He said, "Household energy prices are up by 57% while the cost of home heating oil has more than doubled. These are not just numbers, but represent the real hardship being felt by households who simply cannot bear these price increases. It is disgraceful that this government refuses to act while households face the biggest price shock in decades." Doherty also referenced the urgent need to reduce petrol and diesel costs for drivers. Now, undoubtedly, everything said here is absolutely true. You can't fault the reasoning so far. While inflation is certainly hitting households hard across the board, energy is by far the biggest source of this crisis. Specifically, the government's insistence on heavily taxing energy and fuel to reduce Ireland's carbon emissions and meet our climate targets. And Sinn Féin is right to call this out. It is indeed outrageous. And if they left it there would be no problem at all. But of course, they didn't leave it there. They went a step further. Within hours of Doherty's statement, Sinn Féin issued a second press release. Government must make up lost ground on climate action. Sinn Féin spokesperson on climate justice, Senator Lynn Boylan, has called for immediate action to address the slow progress in achieving the Climate Action Plan measures. Bear in mind, Doherty and Boylan's two statements were posted just 4 hours apart. They're demanding both of these things at the same time. So in summation, the message to the government appears to be, why aren't you doing more on climate change? And also, how dare you do more on climate change? Anyone who follows my content knows that I'm not exactly a cheerleader for either the green cause or the government, but you don't have to be a card-carrying member of Greenpeace or Fianna Fáil to know an unreasonable demand when you see one. The absolute prioritization of climate change as an existential crisis, which all parties have agreed to, necessarily must lead to policies like carbon tax and driving motorists off the road, if you'll pardon the pun. That is the natural end stage of this green mania. You can absolutely hate what the government is doing, and believe me, I do, but if environmentalism is your sacred cow, then this is where you must end up. By holding both of these positions at once, the opposition is like the bag lady in The Simpsons.
I want everything in one bag.
Yes, ma'am.
But I don't want the bag to be heavy.
Well, I don't think that's possible.
What are you, the possible police?
What they're effectively saying is they want to prioritize climate change as a world-ending catastrophe, but they also don't want to increase taxes or stop people driving their cars at all. How exactly is that supposed to work? Something has to give here. At least Paul Murphy had the honesty to admit that yes, in pursuit of the green agenda, the so-called national herd must be culled. Even if you absolutely hate that opinion, he's only being honest and taking what the rest of them are saying to its logical conclusion. In a similar vein, Sinn Féin made a point about how dreadful it is that holiday makers are experiencing such chaos at Dublin Airport with queues out the door due to mass layoffs, describing the situation as a shambles. And yet just a few months ago, in the midst of COVID, Sinn Féin wanted mandatory hotel quarantine, which would have decimated the airport further.
Obviously we welcome the fact that there's any quarantine, but this does not go far enough. And that is the anger that people are feeling.
And there are many more such examples, of course. Ireland in 22 is sandwiched between, on one hand, an incompetent government, and then on the other hand, Schrodinger's opposition, where every policy is at the same time crap and also not implemented extensively enough, apparently. Dandelion seeds don't blow around in the wind as well as these lads. If these parties want to be taken seriously as maybe being able to one day lead the country through various crises, then they should get off the fence and pick a clear stance on these vital issues once and for all. Please like and share this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider signing up for a monthly donation via the link on screen to help us produce more content like this. Alternative media like Gript needs all the assistance it can get, and every donation goes a long way. As always, thanks for watching.